Hello everyone, hi, my name is Kyle, I'm the Culinary Arts Director at the Center on Halsted. Welcome to the sixth video from my house and kitchen that I'm doing for everyone. Little virtual lessons, keep everyone engaged, and for people who are interested in coming into the program. So today I'm going to kind of change it up a little bit. We're only going to be doing one thing. As much as probably everyone, wants to see me talk for 2 hours. Yeah, it's not that it doesn't work out very well, so I'm going to try and keep it a little quicker for everyone. We're going to be doing something really simple today. We're going to be doing a dessert, and we are going to be kind of going along the lines of what Chef Cindy did. The theme now is spring, because spring is just about sprung. I mean, I know in Chicago it's always kind of up in the air. But so today we're going to be working with rhubarb. So I'm just going to go grab it. Give me a sec. Literally a sec. So anyway, all right. So I do have a lot of things mise en place out so I can get things going and cooking, and we can keep a good flow with everything. So first and foremost, we are going to talk about rhubarb. This is rhubarb. Okay? It's like a stalk. It kind of looks like rose and pink colored celery, okay? So rhubarb, like celery, rhubarb is a vegetable, okay? It is not a fruit, although a lot of times you are going to be see them used in sweet preparations. We're very familiar, like strawberry rhubarb pie, rhubarb preserves, rhubarb jam. The door is open, the birds are chirping. I hope it's not bothering everyone, but it gets a little hot in here. So anyway, so this is rhubarb, okay? It is a perennial, which means that it will regrow. It doesn't need to be replanted every year. A lot of times when people grow these, they will grow them in the corner of a garden because it branches out. So we're all familiar with celery. So when you have a stalk of celery, it's all very kind of tight and together. This actually shoots out. Right? So if this is where it starts growing, it's going to like shoot out. Okay? So it actually kind of spreads. So it's a perennial. It is a sign of spring. This is one of the first signs of spring. It's one of the first foodstuffs, one of the first food products that is harvested at the beginning of spring. So when you go to farmers markets, this is probably one of the very first things you'll see. Sometimes if you go to farmers markets really, really early, like when they first open, everybody has rhubarb. There's not a whole lot else there, okay? There's also, like a lot of other things, this is actually grown year-round too in greenhouses, and then it is called hothouse rhubarb, and it's pretty good because it tends to be redder, a little more tender, not as tart. And that's just because of the controlled growing environment. So that's when it is called hothouse rhubarb. History of rhubarb. There's not a whole lot. This would be kind of quick. So it's been around for a long time. The first time that people thought that it was used, that they can kind of go back and see, was about the 17th century. But prior to that, it actually goes back thousands of years, and it was used for medicinal purposes. So the first, and it was actually, that goes back to China, right? And before China, and after China, then it came, and it's actually documented in Roman and Greek cultures, once again, for medicinal uses. I'm not going to go into medicinal uses, they're kind of weird. But so then, like I said, 17th century was about the time where it was first started, people were first starting to use it for like actual food. And then in the 19th century, that's when it kind of like blew up. Mostly in Britain, and it got really popular, and it started to be used once, like I said before, in a lot of desserts and also in winemaking. I've never had rhubarb wine. I've kind of seen it before. So that's when it got really popular until, as time went on, World War II, it saw a huge dip, right? So while this is not proven, the theory is that the dip in rhubarb use was directly related to the rationing of sugar in World War II, okay? So one of the big things is like, well, couldn't you eat it without sugar? Not really. And, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a sec. So once again, rhubarb, stalk, This is where it grows from the base. Does it have leaves? It sure does. They're not there anymore, or they kind of are. Okay? Why? Rhubarb leaves are toxic. They are not good for you. They have a compound called oxalic acid. And it is actually an organic compound that is found in ink, metal cleaner, and the third one. It's kind of weird, okay? Like you wouldn't think about that. But it's very, very concentrated in the leaves. So a lot of times when you get rhubarb at the store, or if you order it from a purveyor, very, very rarely is it going to have the leaves attached, okay? They actually grow in like an arrow kind of shape. So that's why there's no leaves on it. Actually, the whole rhubarb has the acid in it, but in the stalk, it has such small amounts, like you won't even know it. So do you want to eat the leaves? No. Will it kill you? No. But, you know, sometimes you just don't want to roll the dice, right? Okay, so don't eat the leaves.
Yes, it is pretty toxic. It can make you very, very sick.
Yes, it can. It's like if I was just, I'm not even going to do it because I'm scared. I don't want to do it. But even if I just picked off this little bit and put it in my mouth, I'd probably be okay. I probably wouldn't, you know, get very, very sick, right? But yeah, you can't just nosh on it or anything, right? So like I said, I could do this, not going to do it. It's Friday. I'd like to enjoy the weekend. Okay, so another thing about the leaves. Haven't done this before, heard it, might work, but apparently you can take the leaf, if you do have the leaves, you can take them off and you can boil them. So I think it's 3 parts leaves to 1 part water. You can actually boil, or you bring them to a boil and then simmer them for 30 minutes. You strain that liquid out, let it cool. You can put it in a spray bottle, and you can go in your garden and anything, not anything you're going to eat, right? But any kind of plant you might have where there's plant lice or little aphids and the bugs, you know, that eat the leaves and put all the holes in them, you can actually spray that solution on there and it'll be a deterrent to the bugs, and they'll just leave it alone, and then they'll actually ideally end up dying off and your garden will be protected. That is an example of a natural pesticide. So, you know, once again, haven't tried it, but it's something, if you get your hands on rhubarb leaves, don't eat them, boil them, maybe spray it on some plants. Okay. So that's basically rhubarb, okay? Can you eat it raw? Yes, you can, okay? So I figure, like, why not? Like, I'm going to have to cut this for what we're doing today. So I'm just taking the top and a little of the bottom off, okay? Like, not a whole lot, just a little bit.
Just for the record, even that little bit, that little tip of leaf that they left there, always trim that off and get rid of it. Don't
always just get rid of it. If you see, if it's a green leafy thing, get rid of it. Okay. So it's kind of fun experiment time, right? So what you can do, I mean, this was actually popular, I believe, in the Scandinavian countries, was you can just take it, right? And you could just dip it in some sugar, and you could just eat it. It's not bad. You need sugar, right? It needs sugar. It's very, very tart, like incredibly tart. It's actually really fun. I was mentioning this earlier to my girlfriend that when I was cutting it, when you actually cut into it, okay, you ever seen those slow motion videos of cutting into a fruit and like the little moisture comes out and it kind of pops? That stuff comes up and you can smell it, and it has such a unique smell and aroma that you can definitely smell the tartness, like that pop, but you also have this like earthy kind of vegetal like aroma to it as well. So it's really interesting. I hadn't cut rhubarb probably since last year or 2 years ago. Cut into it and it's like, wow, like it's kind of fun because then you think it's like, it's cool, springtime, right? So just remember, you know, if you want to eat it raw, you can. Just might dip it in some sugar. I have seen other people, I haven't done this, but I've seen other times, people will shave it super thin and toss it in salads. But once again, like it kind of needs a little bit of a marinade. Whether you just put it in like a vinaigrette for just a little bit, just to kind of marinate, whatever you do, like you can do that. And you just want to make sure though, you kind of accentuate like your salad or your slaw with it. It's not the predominant thing because it'll kind of overtake all the other flavors. Let me just check my oven really quick.
While Chef Kyle's checking his oven, just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, type them up in the chat. But I also want to point out in rhubarb, so in the South, it's really popular to just eat it, like cut it up and eat it with brown sugar, like in a bowl. That's very popular. But it has a very astringent taste to it. It's very tart. You can smell like kind of that fruitiness, and when you smell it, you can see how it matches really well with strawberry.
Yeah.
In a sense. But it has like a tartness and a dryness almost to it, that where you can tell it's a vegetable when you have it just like that.
So there's the rhubarb. Here's the inside of it. Okay, it's completely different looking, right? And it's fibrous too, like kind of like celery. Like it's the same thing. It's not in the celery family. I think I read that it's actually in the sorrel family, which I was kind of surprised. But yeah, so
sorrel's tart as well.
Yeah,
it's sour grass.
Got that lemony bit. So what I'm making today is a rhubarb crisp. Okay, so the reason I wanted to do a crisp, for one, there's two reasons. One, it's really, really simple to make, right? It is. It's only a handful of ingredients. It comes together pretty quickly. The second reason is crisps are very, very universal. And it's really, really awesome they're really awesome to do because you can do them through the whole growing season, right? You can start with rhubarb, then you can go to your fruits like your blackberries. I guess you could do raspberries, I don't know so much, but you just kind of go with the growing season, right? Then you get to like stone fruits, right? And peaches and plums and everything. So it's a great dessert because you can go to the farmer's market, you can get everything fresh, and all you're doing is basically accentuating everything with some sugar. You can put vanilla, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. But in essence, you're basically capturing the fruit at its peak and not muddling the flavors at all, right? And it tastes really bright and fresh. So I cut the rhubarb, right? So the first thing we were going to do with the crisp, all right? The oven is at 375 degrees. I have these nice little pretty baking dishes that I rarely use, but I really like them, okay? I'm going to make two of them, and these are buttered, just with room temperature butter, okay? So that's step one, right? Oven on that, all right? I am going to cut this, so, and when I'm cutting this for the crisp, okay? Not huge chunks. It doesn't need to be tiny, right? And it doesn't need to be perfect. It's a baked dish. Everything's coming together. It's going to have a topping on it, right? It kind of is like, it's almost like a pie filling, sort of, where like you don't need to take time cutting everything perfect. You just need to cut everything roughly the same size so it cooks at the same rate. Okay, so I'm just cutting this last stalk. Like I said, I got a little ahead after the Farberton, if anyone watched that video. Pastry wasn't done on time. Kind of felt like an idiot, but anyway, so I have everything kind of already measured out. This is going to be the last part. So what I have is, this is 4 cups. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention. As I said in the past, when I do pastry demos, I'm always like, measure, weigh it, grams. I'm not doing that today. I'm doing it old-timey, right? I'm doing it with cups and tablespoons and everything. Yeah, I do it sometimes. So,
well, for a crisp chef, a crisp is considered fairly rustic.
Yeah.
What we consider informal, rustic. It's a very old style of doing. And again, because you're celebrating the fruit and all those things, it's just about kind of feeling it out.
Yeah. And it's a great dessert too, because once you kind of get familiar with the ingredient, like whatever fruit you're using, you're gonna measure, but like it's very like this is 4 cups, right? I'm not like leveling off 4 cups. I'm just like, whatever. It's like, it's roughly 4 cups. It'll be fine. Okay. So 4 cups. Okay. I have a half cup of sugar. Okay, seems like a lot. You need it. Okay. Small lemon, not big, small lemon. Juice of 1 small lemon and the zest of 1 small lemon. Okay, so I know you're thinking, so we're just talking about this right now. It's like, but isn't it tart? Didn't you say it was tart? Why are you adding more tartness to it? So like I said earlier, the rhubarb it is tart, but it's very earthy and kind of vegetal, right? The lemon is actually going to be a brighter. It's going to like pop. It's going to like make everything like just not come alive. I don't know the word, but you know what I'm saying. It's going to
shine.
Yeah, shine. There we go. Yes, shine. Okay, so sugar, lemon juice, lemon zest, rhubarb. I'm just going to mix this up. Now, some recipes will tell you to do this and then put it, oh my gosh, the butter. Sorry. Some recipes will do this, say mix this stuff up, like mix all these ingredients and then put it right in the baking dish and put the topping in and throw it in. I don't subscribe to that magazine. I actually want to let this kind of sit. The sugar is going to kind of draw out some of the liquid, and then we're going to add a thickening agent later, and it just kind of comes together better. So depending on like the size of the batch you make, but you can actually like when you mix these ingredients together, you can like do this and then like go for a walk around the block or whatever. Like it can chill for a little bit, right? Not too long. You don't want it because it will break down a little. But you know, like I said, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it's totally fine.
This technique, by the way, is called maceration.
Yes.
When you mix sugar and we've talked about it before in vinaigrettes and things where you kind of let things fuse together. But when you talk about fruit or, you know, in this case, vegetable with sugar, that them hanging out together and then that little bit of liquid that seeps out, that's called maceration.
So we're not looking for the sugar to dissolve at all, right? We're just putting it together, okay? So that part's done. I totally forgot to take the butter out of the fridge, but we'll make it work. Okay. So that's the filling. That's it. There's one more step, but like that's the part, right? So now a topping. A crisp traditionally has a topping, like a streusel-like topping, right? So there's crisps, crumbles, and cobblers, right? Crisps have a topping, which is flour, brown sugar, crisps. I read this somewhere. No. Crisps traditionally have oats, right? Crumbles don't, right? That's what I read. Okay. Oh, there's a little salt in here too. It helps. You know, it just helps with seasoning. So the butter, right? If you were in class and you remember when we were doing pastries and Chef Cindy was going through this, right? We want cold butter. In this case, cold is good, right? It can be not room temperature. It can basically come out of the fridge for like 5-10 minutes to take that like little bit of like really hard chill off of it. But the one thing you don't want is warm butter. I have seen people do this with melted butter. I haven't done that before, but the other thing is when they do it with melted butter, once again, they melt the butter, and then let it cool down. You don't want to do this while you're hot. So, this is the third time I'm going to be making this in the last 24 hours. So I actually have some backup in case I scaled this out. I think it'll be enough. So, this is a half cup of flour. This is a 1/4 cup of brown sugar that's packed, okay? By packed, you just you pack it in, you don't just scoop, pack it in, okay? And a 1/4 cup of oats, okay?
Are those roll dough, Chef?
Yes. Then always once in a while you're gonna have that one piece of brown sugar that's really hard, it got away, So I'm just using hopefully not too much hard brown sugar. So I'm just using my fingers, right? I'm just breaking this up. I'm just making sure it's kind of uniform. The brown sugar is all crumbly, okay? And then what I'm going to do, okay, I'm just going to go all in one. And So like I said about the fruit, right? You can make the fruit, and then you could take a walk around the block. Yeah, you could do that. That's if you have the crumble made. If you don't have the crisp topping made. If you don't have the crisp topping made, like I'm doing now, this is a great time to make the crisp topping. This will take like maybe 5 minutes of doing this. And then in that time, the fruit is, as Chef Cindy said, it's macerating. So the liquid is kind of drying out. And then we'll be ready to get toward, to like the last step of this.
So are you just rubbing in the butter, Chef, with your fingertips?
Yep, just rubbing it in. Like you get a cube and you just kind of start pushing it together, thumb and forefinger. And then what we're looking for here is we do not want, technically, I don't know the best way to word this, Chef. You could probably help me out with this. You don't want it like fully incorporated, right? You're looking for like these like pea-sized, more, like bits. That doesn't mean you need to stand over this bowl and like make sure every single one is pea-sized. If you can do it, kudos to you. Like that'd be amazing. But I'm not doing that. What I'm just trying to do is make sure like there's not too many huge chunks of just pure butter. And then I also am trying to make sure that, and like on the other side of that, I'm trying to make sure that like I'm not over incorporating it. So it's like really fine, right? It's like this perfect balance of like having some thick chunks, having a little bit of powder. At least for me, that's what kind of makes it really rustic. As Chef was saying earlier, like this is a really super simple dessert. It's really old school, right? It's not gonna. It shouldn't take you too much time to do. I mise en place like some stuff out, like all the measuring. But you can see like overall, I think 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I'm at less than 10 ingredients overall, right? So while I'm doing this, the fruit is macerating, and I think short-term memory loss, I guess. But there's a lot of other things, right? With rhubarb, you can put strawberries in there. Yes, you can put, I've seen blackberries. Basically what you're looking at is you're looking at the rhubarb growing season at its tail end. That's when like strawberries are coming. And then maybe you get the early part of blackberries. So like that's how the growing season, that's why they're going together, right? Because that's the season, that's how it goes. I have seen this crumble topping. I'm using all-purpose flour. I've seen recipes with whole wheat flour. I'm sure that is delicious too. It probably adds a layer of like toastiness and aroma that's really good. So I'm kind of at here. It's not completely all the way. I don't know if you could see, but I'm getting there. Right, there's still some big chunks, but I'm also like, even if there's some big chunks in here, I'm not going to flip out and be like, oh, I need to get rid of those because I don't want to turn everything into powder, okay? So basically that's where I'm at.
The other thing I want to point out is like, so because this is a really rustic, straightforward dessert, because you're trying to celebrate that fruit and just add a little bit of texture with your topping, whatever it may be, crumble, cobbler, whatever. Notice that Chef just used his hands, right? At most you might want to use like a wooden spoon to mix it all together, but you would never put this like in a machine. You're not making pastry. You're just trying to get that butter and everything incorporated, like he said. So in pastry, what we usually call it, like in this point, is like it's shaggy, is what we call it, because it's not super damp. It's kind of just mixed together, and you're looking for, again, like what Chef said, like butter to be broken down. The best thing I can incorporate it to is like when we start making pie dough and we push in that butter, break that butter in. Basically, once that part is done completely, that's where you're going to stop with this. And you're just going to make sure that the butter is totally coated with your powdered sugar, I make a topping with powdered sugar. Your flour and your sugar and things like that it's all kind of mixed together enough that it's a mix.
Yeah, and the other thing with the oats, with the oat part of it too, I was just like noticing this, like the oats will start breaking up too as you do it. So I'm absolutely sure that you could probably get start with the salt, the flour, the brown sugar, and the butter, right? Get like 50% of the way there, and then throw the oats in if you want to see those like big, well, they're not big, but if you want to see the oats in there. That's kind of like a presentation thing. I am not a cinnamon freak. I like cinnamon, like it's cool, but like I'm not a cinnamon freak, right? So I'm not going to put any in here. It's not my jam. Like I don't like cinnamon and apples, cool. You know, cinnamon and a lot of other things, not the way I want to go. But nuts, you can put crushed nuts in here, like pecans and stuff. But once again, like rhubarb has such a distinct flavor that that's why a lot of times people do put strawberries in there. The strawberries actually kind of help to balance out the rhubarb. I really like rhubarb. Like it is a strong, strong flavor, but I really, really do like it. And I'm trying not to add too many other flavors to it, right? So like nothing that would take away from just the unadulterated flavor of rhubarb, so to speak. So a crisp, sorry I didn't go on this earlier, but a crisp, the topping. Some people put this topping on the bottom. I've never done that. I don't know, like I just saw that recipe the other day. I was like, really? It seems like it would get soggy. And I don't know, some people do it. We're just putting it on the top. So the crisp has, what separates the crisp and the crumble idea is technically like the oats in the crisp topping. And then there is cobbler. And, chef, you could always jump in if I'm wrong, but I think the cobbler is more of a biscuit topping that is, or like a biscuit dough that is like dropped on. And the reason it's called a cobbler because then when it's like cooked, it looks like cobblestone streets, like old brick streets. So, the more you know, the more you grow, I guess. Okay, so when you're baking this, right, don't just put it in one of these and then put it in the oven, right? Try and have a pan underneath, right? Unless you're baking it in like a glass dish or a nonstick like roasting pan or something, and it has high sides, and you're not going to fill it up all the way because the rhubarb, the juice and everything, it will kind of, I don't want to use the term expand, but it'll bubble, right? And it'll seep over the sides. So you don't want that because there's a lot of sugar in here. That'll get in your oven, gets on your bottom, then you got smoke and the burnt sugar. So we got the crisp topping. We have the fruit. Okay. Last part, cornstarch. Okay. We all know cornstarch, right? It's a thickener. If you ever know, like you actually get it from scraping the corn cob. It's like the starch that's in there. I've seen recipes where people put flour in there. Once again, never saw that before. It seems strange to me. It seems like it would make the filling kind of like a little heavier, but I mean, I guess you could try it. But so this is 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. So it's really hard to see, but see.
I see it. I see it.
See it, the liquid? Okay. That is not just the lemon juice, right? That is like the sugar pulling stuff out. So like I said, why I want to let that sit, I want to let it macerate. So now there's some liquid. So now it's going to mix with the cornstarch easier. So I'm just going to throw the cornstarch in. Uh-oh. Okay. Cornstarch goes in. I'm just mixing to incorporate. Oops. So now the cornstarch is going to kind of start soaking up that liquid a little bit. But I want to make sure I mix it so I don't see any like large white spots or anything. Okay. And now at this point, even though hasn't done what it's supposed to do yet, which is completely thicken, it is going to be a little thicker and it's going to be more like a cloudiness. Okay, it's totally fine if it looks a little different. It'll happen. But the cornstarch, the cornstarch is the thickener, and this is what's going to give it that like pie filling kind of texture. That's the best way I can kind of describe it. So now, have the dishes. So now we're going to put this in there. All over the place. We're going to put this in. As you can see, I'm going to go back and forth, so I like make sure I'm balancing it out. So all that juice that's left in there, that goes in there too. Do not just put the fruit in there. That juice goes in there too. That is going to create that nice kind of liquidy filling. I think I got enough. Well, I hope I do because I don't have any more rhubarb, so it's not like I can fix that.
It looks like you have plenty, Chef.
Yeah. Well, so this is actually a kind of important part that I'm pretty big on. So I did work at a restaurant one time, and well, a few times, but this restaurant I worked at, I made a lot of these things. Like, it was the first thing I would do in the morning when I would come in. I would make these. I made them in smaller little thing, like small little like ramekins. But I was very, very adamant when I was showing other people, you do not want this. I mean, you can, right? This is just me, but like, you want this in a dish like this. You want this to come over the edge, right? You want it to be above the edge, okay? And I'll show you like why. But like basically, the fruit, it's going to start bubbling, right? And it's gonna get hot and it's going to start bubbling. During that time, right? There's some, it's kind of pushing out a little bit. But once you take it out of the oven and start to let it cool, it's going to cool and it's going to deflate, right? Or collapse. And one of my big things is making this, and I taught myself this right when I saw it, but like one of the big things is I don't want this to like be like, you don't want it to be nice and flat, right? You put it in the oven, it looks great, and then you take it out and it's like sunken in. It's just, it's not attractive looking, at least in my opinion, it doesn't look right. So we want to create like more of a dome, and we want to make sure the dome is high enough so even when you take it out, there's a little dome, or then it's completely flat, if that makes sense. So crumble. Also, tray. Crumble goes everywhere. At least it's on the tray. It's another thing. So now
I got a question about the best size bowl to use for them, or I guess to bake them in the best vessel.
Okay, so what I'm baking them in this is ceramic. Okay, and Cindy, unless you have an opinion, I mean, I really like ceramic for stuff like this. Like, I mean, this is like Le Creuset. It's like really nice. I really like it. If you have a glass baking dish, once again, I can reference you to the Far Breton video debacle that I did where I wasn't ready on time. But you can make it in something like that too, right?
I believe that was an 8x8.
Oh yeah, size-wise, yeah, like an 8x8. What else size? Like 8x8 or like 8x10? Is that right? I'm trying to think. You can bake it in like anything. You probably don't want to bake it in on one of these, okay? Not like a sheet pan. You want something that does have some sides on it. Like I said, it can be glass. Ceramic, it can be glass. It could be a nonstick roasting pan. It could probably be like stainless steel too, right? I would definitely not say aluminum though, okay? Because of the acidity, it might impart a metallic taste. Acids and aluminum, they don't interact well, and it might impart a metallic taste. But probably the most common thing that people would have at their home to make this is probably like a Pyrex glass baking dish. I would think that would be like the most common thing that people would have.
Yeah, traditionally you would either make one big one, like again, like that 8x8 square Pyrex, kind of vibe. If you're doing it, when we do it for restaurants, things like that, you would make smaller ones. As long as I recommend your ceramic or glass always, because again, the metal, any type of metal will end up kind of giving you a little bit of metallic flavor, which is always not great. And then it's really just about like get that, Chef is going to talk about it, I'm sure, but just getting that top crispy and you see the bubbles coming out. And that's really what it's about, getting to those points. So, if you're doing really small ones, they're going to take a lot less time.
So as you can see, so I'll try and get to side level, right? Okay, see how it's domed up, right? That's really kind of what you're looking for. you don't want to go crazy, right? You don't want to make like a dome like that, just like kind of use your best instincts. So these are going to go in the oven, right? 35, 40 minutes, right? If you are making it in a glass baking dish, probably it'll take maybe like 45 to 50 minutes, right? This is something, what's really great about this is like, I'm not going to say you can't overcook it because that is not true, but this is a very good dessert for the senses test, the eye test, the smell test. You look in, you see little bubbles, like one bubble coming up. No, it's not done. You kind of want to see kind of bubbles coming up on the side. You don't want it to, it should not look like it's like ready to explode, like really like boiling or anything, but you should see little bubbles coming up on the sides. That's usually like a good one. You could also then like, I don't like piercing the crust, but you could also always take like a knife, like a small paring knife, stick it in, leave it in there 5 seconds, take it out, touch your lip with it. If the knife is hot to your lip, then it's done. So these are going to go in 35 minutes.
The other thing you want to consider when you're making your crisp is also how ripe your fruit is. So if your fruit is kind of softer, it might cook a little bit faster, or it might feel, tender faster. And it also depends on your topping. So if you're using how much butter you're using, if you're using like that biscuit style topping, you just want to make sure than anything that once that biscuit is kind of set, your fruit is probably pretty much done.
Yeah. Yes, ripeness of fruit is very important. The other thing too is like what I was saying about the great thing about this crisp idea. It's April right now. Okay, rhubarb will be around definitely now until like May, probably even until June. I actually think it goes pretty long, maybe even until like July. It's pretty much, it goes until it gets like hot. Like when it's hot, like you walk outside, you're like, man, it's hot today. Yeah, there's probably no more rhubarb. But then you go right into usually here in the Midwest, usually about June. Once again, it's all based on weather, but usually about June is most of your berries are first coming in. Then you go into stone fruits. Like I said, so rhubarb is very tart, right? And it needs sugar. It needs more sugar. If I was doing the same thing with like peaches, right? Like really fresh peaches, I probably wouldn't use that much sugar, okay? Because you can just grab a peach and eat it. I've never seen anyone sitting on a park bench eating a stalk of rhubarb, so that's kind of how I think about it, which is a weird way to think about it, but it's very true. Another thing too, so this crumble, that's all I have left, right? There's maybe like 2 tablespoons of it, so woohoo, great, recipe is perfect. Yeah, but like I said, I've made this a few times since yesterday, just practicing and getting the feel down. If you make something like this, whatever the crumble topping is, if it's a simple one, right? Like if it has like nuts and stuff, maybe not. You can always add them later. But if it's a very basic one like this, make a batch of it. Like make a batch of it, put it in containers, and put it in the freezer. It's awesome. Like you can use it all summer long, right? You go to the market, there's fresh fruit, and you're like, oh, what do I want to do for dessert? And maybe you want to do other stuff. Maybe you're in a softball league or something. I don't know. But like maybe you're doing something else and you just want to do something really simple. Man, having that crumble, you take it out of the freezer, it's going to break up right away. And you just sprinkle that right on top. And then you're good to go right in the oven. And it's great. So that's it's another reason I wanted to show you the crisp idea because of that topping. It can throw it in the freezer and it'll last. So it has not been 35 minutes. And in the past, I would have stood here and talked for 35 minutes. But we're not doing that today because I thought ahead, okay? So through the magic of television or me thinking ahead, I have one that's done. Okay, so here you go. Okay, so remember what I said first, right? Having that dome, right? We all kind of remember what that looked like. Here it is now. It's not domed anymore, right? But it's like completely flush with the top. You can just see a little bit. Now, if I did dome it a little higher, yes, it would have a little bit, which maybe I would have preferred, but I think this is fine, okay? I'm really worried it's just gonna fall out, okay? So you see the topping, right? It's not all the same. It's like little pebbles, and then there's some parts that are finer. You can see right over here, you can see where it was bubbling, where it was kind of pushing through, okay? Like I said, this was 35 minutes. Here's an idea, right? So we kind of saw, right? This was like, yeah, cool. This was like 10 ingredients. We got it together. You know, it was pretty simple. It's a very universal recipe. It's a lot of great things, right? It's meant to just celebrate the fruit of the season. You're good to go. When you do this, right? When you do this, let's say you're having people over, right? So let me backtrack. First thing, you are not eating this right out of the oven. Don't do that. For one, you'll burn your mouth and you won't be happy. But two, you want to let it sit. So we talked about this when we were in class, right? But you know, also for anyone who is joining us who is interested in class, we talk about like when we make pies, that old-timey idea of the pie sitting on the windowsill, like in cartoons or old movies, like that's legit. You do not eat a pie right out of the oven. You do not eat this right out of the oven. You want to let it sit. But you can eat it at room temperature and it's absolutely delicious. It's absolutely fine. But it's also really good to have warm, slightly warm, right? So that could mean you take it out of the oven. It probably sits for maybe 90 minutes. This size probably sits for like 90 minutes. Sure, then you can serve it. But then it's like a timing issue. And if you're doing other things, if you're having people over for dinner, so what I would recommend is that if you're having people over for dinner, you make this, right? It's good to go. Pull it out early, let it cool. If you're using your oven, if you're entertaining at your house and your oven is on, you've been roasting a chicken or something, once everything comes out of the oven that you're going to serve, turn the oven off and then throw the dessert in. And it'll grab that residual heat from the oven. Like the oven's not on, but it'll have that residual heat and it'll start warming through, right? So then when you're sitting down at a table with your guests and everyone's eating the main course and everyone's having a good time and whatever, the dessert is warming up. So then you're done, you pull it out, the pan will be hot probably, but the inside, it won't be piping hot. And then you can put ice cream on top. Or if you don't have ice cream, which I don't, put whipped cream on top, which I do. So this is so like restaurant pastry chef style, like leaving the whisk in the container so you can like re-whisk it, you know? But it's true. So now, like I said, I don't have ice cream. But I think there's that. So with whipped cream, you know, maybe your dessert is going to be more like room temp. If the dessert is warm, I am a sucker for a scoop of ice cream on top of something warm. And then when you see those first little bits of melty ice cream like seeping out on the sides, like that's like picture worthy to me. Like that's living, like in my opinion. But so, you know, we're not going to get fancy, but you know. Okay. Boom, there you go. Right. I mean, I could have made a quenelle or something like, you know, crazy, but I was just like, you know, my grandmother never made quenelles, so, you know. So that's it, guys. So that is a rhubarb crisp. All right. It's super easy to make. Like I said, this one we made is probably under, you know, it's under 10 ingredients. Stuff like this is going to last you throughout. It's a dessert that's very universal. It can last you throughout the whole growing season. You can make the crumble. You can put it ahead. You can throw it in the freezer. And then, you know, probably start to finish, you know, like I said, it was talking and everything, but like because of the not needing a lot of ingredients and because little stuff, like you're not dicing the rhubarb perfectly, you know, like start, you know, from the time you start this to the time you finish it, it's like maybe like an hour and 15 minutes, right? So it's also something that, you know, comes together relatively quick. And that includes the cooking time. If you're just talking about the prep time, this is like, you know, under 30 minutes that you can get this together. So that's about it. Incredible. 45 minutes. Not even. I hope I didn't bore anyone. But thanks. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question about rhubarb. So
yes,
we do see it in sweet applications a lot, but what about savory?
Oh yeah. Sorry, it was on page number 3. Cindy actually brought this up to me. We were talking about it. I only wanted to do one recipe so we can keep things moving along. Cindy brought up a great one. So other recipes. So we know there's like sweet ones. Okay. So we know pies, preserves, jams, crisps, crumbles, all this stuff. So, right. So savory. Okay. So with savory, Cindy and I were talking, she brought up a great one, like mostarda. Okay. So mostarda, and if I miss anything, please feel free to hop in, is like a sweet and sour condiment, right? A lot of recipes, like it's going to have sugar and it's going to have vinegar, right? It's aigre-doux is the French term, it's like, balancing out. But rhubarb, right? It's very tart, right? So you probably want to watch the vinegar. But what's really good, like with like rhubarb, ways I've seen it is like a mostarda, like I said. So a mostarda, right? It's like think of it like it's like a savory jam almost, right? It's not incredibly sweet. It's going to be tart. It's going to be bright. That would probably go really well on like grilled items, right? Because you have the nice char and like the smokiness of the grill, and then you have this bright flavor from like vinegar and rhubarb. That would go really well. I have seen it before where you actually you can poach it, right? So you would kind of cut it up like I did, and just into chunks, and you would cook it like in a little like flavored simple syrup, right? So we're thinking sweet, but actually it goes really well with like duck, right? Like, and then really like those brown demi-glace sauces with like duck and game meats. You could also do the same thing. You cook it in some simple syrup and puree it, right? And if you remember, Chef Cindy did like advanced plating and the swoosh, right? So that's really pretty on a plate because you have this puree. It's nice and silky smooth, and it's got this nice pink color. So if you imagine that with like a piece of like a medium rare venison, well, maybe not venison. Venison probably work, but like duck, right? And then you put like a swoosh of it around. It's really appealing to the eye. And then duck is something that's really rich, right? So you have duck and it's like really super rich, and then you dip it in the puree and you eat it, and it's like all of a sudden you have that tartness that's going to cut through the richness and cut through, like if the skin is gone, like the fattiness of the duck. So those are a few savory applications. I had it in my notes. I just didn't read it. Those are a few things you can do. Like I said, cooking it in simple syrup, it is a sweet preparation, but then you can use that in a lot of savory things. I'm trying to think what else. Sure, you can make it into a glaze of some type. I don't know. I haven't done that one before. But yeah, I would definitely like. It's actually fun to look up like savory rhubarb. Like I looked it up. Like look up savory rhubarb dishes. Like it's pretty cool what people do with stuff like that. In the past, I don't know. I would probably say about 15, 20 years. There has been a big movement, so to speak, about crossing what everyone like used to do, right? So and some of you have seen this in the class, using parsnips in desserts, right? Parsnips, like that's always usually savory food. Trying to incorporate stuff that is savory into sweet, and then conversely using sweet stuff into savory. So rhubarb is something you can do that with. You know what? While I'm at it, I mean, Jacques Pepin tries his food, you know. Yeah, it's great. It's really good. I would definitely try making it this way, or trying it somewhere else to see if you just like rhubarb. I will say it's a really, really unique flavor. I really like it because it's a little different. But there's like, this one's still a little warm, but it's like, it's got the pie filling texture and it's got the crunch on top. And then the cream kind of cuts through everything, brings it together. So that's it. So I hope everyone had a good time with the Rhubarb Crisp today. Just if anyone has any questions. No? Well, it's good seeing everyone. Thank you for coming. Like I said, we'll get this one hopefully lightly edited this time, and we'll get it up on online for everyone. So if you want to watch it again or for the first time, you can do it. So thank you, Cindy. Appreciate it. Bye, everyone. Have a good day and have a good weekend.